Hello, sports fans. Welcome to this week's episode of EBC Sports International. I'm your host, EJ Gonzalez, coming to you from Alexandria, Virginia. Now, whether you're watching us live or catching up on our YouTube or Facebook page, we thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you're all staying safe and healthy during these interesting times. And as always, I'm joined by a good group of friends who I love to talk sports with. From Washington State, welcome, Michael Hudson.
What's going on, guys? NFL draft is in full swing. Super excited to talk about it tonight. Let's get this started.
Definitely. Lots to talk about there. And now from the U.S. Capitol, we got Ken Cruz.
Yo. I'm calling it now. This will be back-to-back years that the Super Bowl will be won by the hosting team, the LA Rams in SoFi Stadium. Calling it now.
Oh, wow.
That's
hot take already. Hot take already in the beginning of the show. All right, well, we'll talk some NFL later. But lastly, from Las Vegas, welcome back, Brian Sansan. What's up, man?
How's it going, everybody? Let's get this started. I'm excited.
Definitely. Thank you guys, all you guys, for joining today. And again, before we go on, just want to remind our viewers that we are by no means experts, but rather a good group of friends expressing our own opinions and share that same passion for sports. Now, before we get into our discussions, let's get you guys updated on some sports news. First up, Michael's got the scoop on Antonio Brown. Mike.
I sure do, E, and it's official. Antonio Brown has re-signed with the Super Bowl champion and soon to be back-to-back Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, bringing back all 22 starters from that Super Bowl win against the Kansas City Chiefs back in February. Jolty, who's actually not on the show tonight, he actually told me that this is the first time in NFL history that a Super Bowl winning team has brought back all 22 starters for the next NFL season. So that's a pretty interesting fact there. Obviously, this is a huge re-signing for Tampa Bay because even though he is known to have some off-the-field issues that he's still going through, Antonio Brown is one of the most dangerous wide receivers in the entire league. Currently, his contract is for 1 year and is worth up to $6.25 million with incentives. He gets $3.1 million in guaranteed money with a $2.1 million signing bonus. And many people don't know this, but to make this deal happen, Bucs tight end Cameron Brate had to restructure, or he decided to restructure his current contract so that they could offer this deal to AB. So it looks like all the crucial and core players for the Bucs are back. They understand how important it is to have the crew back so they can repeat and get the GOAT, his 8th ring. Back to you, E.
Man, definitely crazy that the Bucs were able to keep all their core pieces together. I mean, there's going to be a season for them to lose, honestly, with that signing. But thanks, Mike. Now we head to the ice rink where Brian has a story for us on the Golden Knights. Brian, what's up?
Yeah, E, it is without question. The Vegas Golden Knights are surging in the 2021 season. In 2020, VGK finished the standings 39-24 atop their division. And in comparison, the Knights are currently on a 10-game winning streak with a 35-11 record with the number one spot in the entire Western Conference. Now let's go ahead and look at some stats. Mark Stone is currently leading the team in points with 56 and assists with 37. Max Pacioretty is leading the team in goals with 24. And let's not forget about arguably the best tandem in the NHL in Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner. Both goalies have an over 90% save rate, with Andre Fleury currently saving 92% of all shots attempted. Now, this may possibly be the best VGK team assembled this season, and with only a couple of weeks left until the playoffs, there's only one question left to ask. Could this be the year the Golden Knights finally raised up the Stanley Cup? We'll have to wait and see. Back to you, E.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see, but your Knights sound as hot as my Washington Wizards, so I'm sure you're happy. All right, sure. Thanks, Brian. And our very own Ken Cruz made his way back to the media box to cover the Wiz and Lakers game in person. Let's check it out.
11 games are left in the NBA regular season. For the Washington Wizards, Finishing the season strong is essential, as they're currently holding on to the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference, which means they'd be the final team in the playoff play-in tournament. Los Angeles Lakers, on the other hand, are holding on to the 5th spot in the Western Conference and want to avoid dropping in the 7th spot, which would force them to play in the play-in tournament also. With LeBron nearing his return from injury, the Lakers want this win, but the Wizards need this W to keep their playoff hopes alive. One thing's for sure, both teams will bring their A game.
The Wizards did bring their A game, sustaining a high level of intensity throughout the matchup. We asked Lakers coach Frank Vogel, as the season winds down and teams are upping their play for a chance to get into the playoffs, how do the Lakers intend to match the energy of the other teams?
Every game, and that's the mindset going down the stretch. Compete to win every time we touch the floor. Continue to work on building the chemistry that's going to be necessary for us to win in the playoffs. And, that won't be any different than the final 10 games.
We also asked Andre Drummond, since LA is the defending champs, how is it to have other teams bring their best against the Lakers in every game?
It's been crazy because I've been on the other side before, so I know what it's like to play against teams like this and, other great teams in the NBA. So I know, what type of mindset comes into these kind of games. So it's pretty fun for me to be on the other side now and experience that and try to find ways to beat these teams when they give us our best. Give us their best.
The Wizards came into this game with a purpose and executed down the stretch to hold off the Lakers to a final score of 116 to 107. Bradley Beal led the Wiz with 27 points, and Russell Westbrook had himself another casual triple-double, pulling in 18 points, 18 rebounds, and 14 assists. Anthony Davis is getting his game legs back and continuing to wrap up his court time with 26 points in 31 minutes. The Wizards played with a sense of urgency the entire game, while the Lakers struggled to match their intensity. The Lakers have the Kings at home on Friday, while the Wizards travel to Cleveland to face the Cavs also this Friday. For Eagle News, Ken Cruz, we live in interesting times.
And Ken, great coverage. I wanted to get some insight for our viewers, on the experience on how it was covering a game live again. What were some of the interesting differences compared, to pre-pandemic times and your time this time?
Sure. So usually the media has like a media room, right, where we're able to put all our stuff in, and then there's actually food. There is a buffet, right? That's not available. So anymore with obviously because of the COVID protocols, right? So you get over there. There's a new entrance for the media, and then you get your badge, and then you go to your section, which is a pretty awesome section in DC because you get your own table. There's a workstation there. You have a monitor that shows all the upcoming stats, and it's in the 200 section, which is pretty close to the actual court. So there was nobody around me, and then when I got there, there was a prepackaged meal. In this case, it was chicken sandwich. So I was extremely happy to have that. So thank you, Wizards, for your hospitality. And I think one of the biggest changes, obviously, is before you'd be able to go to the court, film the players warming up before the game, and then also after the game. That's not the case. You have to stay at your desk. And then also, I think the biggest change is that, we used to be able to go to the locker rooms to interview the players. And then now it's still via Zoom, right? So they're not asking the media to have an actual vaccine yet. And that makes sense that we're not allowed to be in the same presence as, can you imagine, a media member going there and then having being COVID positive and then having all these players be exposed to a media member, right? So I get it. And that's why the interviews are what they are. The hardest thing is that you don't know when the players are going to show up. So I was just sitting there at the table after the game for 20, 30 minutes waiting in between players. And it caused me to miss my metro train. So I had to take a very expensive Uber back to my home train station. So that was not awesome, but the entire experience was awesome, even with a limited crowd. It's great to be back covering the NBA for EBC. So that's an honor and a blessing always.
Definitely. Well, great stuff, guys. Really appreciate all your updates. Now let's take a quick break before we jump into our topics of the evening. EBC Sports International, we'll be right back.
Broadcast journalist Wayne De La Fuente returns on Philippine television and radio to deliver top stories and engage with the country's policymakers, shapers, and movers. Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita alas 7 ng umaga mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Wayne De La Fuente sa Balit Talakayan.
Passengers here are in for a ride. Taxi drivers here need nerves of steel, while passengers here can get an eyeful along the way. Rev taxis accommodate passengers all over the world. The Driver, our series. Rev.
Welcome back, everyone. Now let's get the conversation started. The Suns, hot Suns, have officially clinched a playoff spot for the 2021 NBA playoffs. It's crazy because these guys have had a 10-year drought of missing the playoffs and have completely turned it around after acquiring Chris Paul in the offseason and now hold the second best record in the NBA. Just one game back from the top spot in the extremely competitive Western Conference, and they're actually playing the Utah Jazz tonight, and they have the chance to tie their record and be that number one team in the NBA. So let's start this off by asking Ken, what is the ceiling this year for these Phoenix Suns?
The ceiling is nice and low, unfortunately. I respect these Suns. Don't get me wrong, right? I mean, they have an amazingly built team. I believe they're seventh in offensive rating, fifth in defensive rating. So it's a very well balanced team, right? And if they do, let's say, ride it out as first place if they win tonight, and I think they'll probably stay first because you know why? Donovan Mitchell, Michael Conley are pretty much out of the lineup. Well, Mitchell's going to be out for another few games, and then Conley's in and out, right? So I feel like they can continue to keep first place. And the big issue is that this play-in tournament with the 10th seed Warriors, I'm saying, if the Warriors go on a run, win those two games, become that 8th spot, take it away from the Grizzlies right now, right? I mean, that matchup, Warriors versus Suns, I will take the Warriors 9 out of 10. Why? Because Chris Paul, I mean, we'll talk about a little later with these guys, but Chris Paul's a 15-year vet. You know what the next most veteran player is? Etuan Moore at 9 years, and I believe Jake Crowder 8 or 7 years, right? And those guys aren't that awesome as far as their playoff experience. CP3 has amazing playoff experience. Jay Crowder, yeah, he was in the finals last year, but he was their 4th, 5th option. And Etuan Moore is Etuan Moore, right? I mean, and then the rest of these guys aren't very playoff seasoned. And that makes a huge difference, especially if you're going to face off against the Warriors first round, who are 3-time champions within the last 5 years. I mean, I don't see them even beating that team. And let's say they do beat this team. You know who they're going to see in the second round? The Lakers, if the Lakers stay at 4th or 5th. I mean, and then they obviously would hopefully beat the Nuggets. Yeah. They're not going to beat the Lakers, unfortunately. I mean, that's
coming from the Lakers guy.
yeah. I mean, like, even if I wasn't a Laker fan, like, who would you take? CP3 and this very young green team, or LeBron James and AD versus reigning champs versus a green Suns team? I love the Suns, but unfortunately, it's going to be like 10 years ago, where they're a great regular season team, but they're not going to go far in the postseason.
Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, and everyone is unhealthy this season, so it's very unpredictable. And if the Suns are playing this hot, they're a scary team to be playing with only 18 losses for the entire season. Now, Brian, I'm going to ask you. Devin Booker, he's making his first postseason appearance in his career this year. What do you expect from him in the playoffs?
Well, since this is going to be his very first time, expectations are going to be high for someone as young as Devin Booker to finally get some playoff experience. At the very least, he does have that veteran point guard in Chris Paul that will help him through. But honestly, I expect him to be the number one option on the team as he has been during the entire regular season. He has to be. But the only difference is that it's going to be the playoffs. Things are going to start slowing down, and not to mention they're going to be facing one of the top defenses in the league in teams like the Jazz or the Clippers, the Lakers. So not only does he have to worry about carrying the offensive load when Chris Paul, in his, God bless him, his aged legs, with all of the mileage that he has, he won't be able to carry the team as much as he used to when he was back in LA. So really, the Suns are looking to Devin Booker to be that guy, to be that dude that's going to be putting up 30, 35 points every game at the very least to keep them, to keep their playoff hopes alive. So honestly, that's what I expect of him. I don't think he's going to reach that expectation, but at the very least, he's going to get a little bit of experience from this first playoff run.
Well, I'm excited to watch Devin Booker and see what he's got. I mean, I think he was made for this type of time, and he's finally going to have a chance to prove it. Now, Mike, I want to ask you, we were talking about the veteran of the team, Chris Paul, and without question, he has changed the culture of every single team he's been on and has made them a playoff-bound team. Do you think that this is the year, where it's very unpredictable, this could be the year that he can make it even just to the finals?
Unfortunately not. I mean, I'm a CP3 guy, and I like him. I think his best chance was when he was with the Rockets, actually, when he was with Harden and they had that, that playoff series against the Warriors. If Chris Paul did not get hurt, I think they had a really good shot at dethroning the Warriors that season. Again, CP3 is like Peyton Manning. I think he's probably one of the greatest regular season players to play. But when it comes to the playoffs, we've seen time and time again, Chris Paul has just not has not delivered. I mean, it starts with the Hornets. They had a 3-1 lead against the Spurs many years ago. They lost that. When he was with the Clippers, they had a 3-1 lead against Houston Rockets. They blew that. When they were with the Rockets, they blew a lead against the Warriors. And so, I mean, time and time again, he just has not delivered. I think, personally, I think the Suns are one player away from making some noise. If they just had that extra wing player, like say if they had like a Paul George or even like a Karis LeVert, that type of caliber player, I think they would have a chance to make a run. But because they're just all they have really is Booker that can really go off. I mean, Chris Paul can go off as well, but as far as consistently, Devin Booker is that man. So, if I were the Suns, I would do my best not to get that number one seed, just to kind of avoid some of the top echelon teams right away. And, it's just unfortunate that they're in the West. I mean, the West is hyper stacked, and it's like every team from 1 to 8 is going to be amazing. So, I think, again, CP3 is a great player, but I don't think he'll be able to take it to the finals this year.
Well, fair enough. I mean, you did compare him to Peyton Manning, though, and he's won before. So I think Chris Paul is bound to win one time, and I think this might be the chance. This might be the year, man. I think there's a good chance.
I just don't think they have the defense to beat. I mean, to beat the Clippers or the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers
are inexperienced.
Yeah, the Lakers are healthy.
Well, that's that. In the NFL comparison that you made with Peyton Manning, the times that he did win with the Broncos, it was all defense. So, in this case, the Suns would need someone that like an actually highly defensive team in order to bring a CP, to get CP3 his chip, but I just don't think this is the year. I don't think there's enough experience in that squad.
I gotcha. Well, let's move on to our next topic real quick, because while Chris Paul is often praised for his career, despite ever making a finals appearance, Russell Westbrook, on the other hand, has often been under the microscope and harshly criticized. The guy has been to the finals before, has made players around him better, and teammates always speak highly of his work ethic and leadership. Westbrook says he always looks to impact the game however he can in order to help the team win, and tonight, Westbrook recorded his 177th career triple-double and is now only 5 triple-doubles away from the all-time NBA record. Guys, Brian, I'm going to start with you. Is Russell Westbrook overrated or is he overhated?
There was a point, where he was overrated, where he was that guy that averaged a triple-double for, 2-3 straight seasons. Now it's going to be another season yet again where he's averaging a triple-double, which is kind of insane, even in today's standards. But really, he's, in my opinion, he's overhated. He gets too much hate for being that guy who's really inefficient or not leading his team into wins. But I kind of see where their side is coming from too, due to the fact that, Westbrook puts up those numbers, but how much of it is it really doing to contribute to the team in terms of wins? Their team right now is in the playoffs, but I mean, they're in the Eastern Conference. But with the Wizards, he's putting up those numbers really because of the fact that he hasn't changed at all. After all of these years, I don't know if he's going to change once he gets into the playoffs eventually, this season again. I wonder if there's going to be any kind of change in his mentality, if he's going to be like, that guy who wants to have the ball in his hands 100% of the time, who wants to affect every single play, that might be to the detriment of the team and to the game. So, he does get a lot of hate, but at the very same time, I can kind of see their side. But I'm kind of 50-50 on where he's at. But definitely he does contribute to wins with the Wizards. There would be no way that they'd be in the playoffs if you replace Westbrook with an average point guard and Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my take on that.
I mean, I can argue that he contributes to wins. I mean, look what he did with in his MVP year with OKC. Like, these guys they've always been in the playoffs, and this is a guy who never shortchanges the audience, and he's always giving it his all. So, Mike, I want to ask you now, do you think that Russell Westbrook is overrated or overhated?
Well, first I want to say just how lucky and blessed we are to see history like this. I don't think people realize what an amazing feat this is. Not since Magic Johnson. I mean, EJ, I don't think you were born yet when Magic Johnson was playing in his heyday.
Not in his prime, right?
Yeah. So I was super young too. So it's like we just don't realize how much of a feat this is. But to answer your question, I think in a regular season he's definitely overhated. I think a lot of the hate that comes is because it's jealousy, man. I'm telling you. I mean, to be able to be that size at 6'2" and be able to rebound the ball that he does. I mean, the other night he had 18 rebounds. Be able to create shots for his teammates. Very creative passer, underrated passer, and to be able to just score with that athleticism and power is just absolutely amazing. But I think when it comes to the playoffs, I would have to say he's overrated because he's kind of in that same breath as Chris Paul, where really great regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, when it really matters, when you're putting all the chips on the table, I just feel he hasn't really delivered when it matters most. But I have to give him, all the credit in the world. I mean, just the way he's been able to just average triple doubles and just really revolutionize the position at that size is just absolutely incredible.
That's what I'm saying. I think people are. He's made the triple-double normal. And it's not a normal thing to do, right? I think that's why a lot of people are taking him for granted. I think he's going to be very missed, once that time comes where he does retire. People are going to miss seeing this guy on the floor. So, Ken, I want to ask you now, how important is Russell Westbrook to the Wizards? Do you think that his contributions is more important than Bradley Beal? Who's the better Wizard in your opinion?
Well, let me ask you. When you think of Westbrook, what's the adjective that you think of?
Ferocious.
Ferocious, explosive, right? I mean, I saw this firsthand this last Wednesday.
Yeah.
How many posters were on Lakers? How many?
A lot. It's probably 5, bro. I think.
Well, I counted 3 nasty top page of Reddit posters. And you know who was the inspiration, the motivation for that? That's Russell Westbrook. You know, like these guys. Like I have never seen like the Wizards be as aggressive going into the rim as I did this last game, and they pretty much do this throughout the whole season. Look, their record with teams over 500 is, I think, 41.2%. I think they have 14 wins against teams over 500. You know how many teams they have wins they have over teams below 500? 15. What that means is that these guys bring their A games when they're supposed to. They beat the Nets. You know, and they have season sweep the Nets, and it's one of those things where I feel like in the playoff time, they're gonna, like, Westbrook's experience is gonna pay off, and that's where I put him above Beal, because Beal, I don't say that he has empty numbers. I mean, he's leading the league for a reason in scoring, but at the same time too, like, you have to have a guy, a floor general, that's mean, that's nasty, and that's the embodiment of Russell, of Brody, of Beastbrook. Yeah. And he's made these Wizards extremely scrappy. His footprints are over the entire game, even when he's on the court.
Exactly. And I think I would agree to your point that Beal is not the best Wizard this year. He's had many games where he scored over 40, but their record with him scoring that many is very bad. But Brody brings it every single night, and these triple-doubles, I think, contribute to wins. So, guys, great thoughts. Now let's go ahead and take a quick break, but when we come back, we have some things to discuss around the NFL. This is EBC Sports International.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas. A 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our help outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. Now, the first day of the NFL draft was held last night in Cleveland, and a handful of new young talent have been chosen by the league. As expected, Trevor Lawrence was taken first overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars, Following that, the Jets chose Zach Wilson, 49ers got Trey Lance, Falcons selected Kyle Pitts, and the Bengals acquired Jamar Chase to round off the top 5. As always, there were some head scratchers and steals in that first night of the draft, so let's get you guys' take. Mike, I'm going to start with you, man. Who are the winners? Who are the losers after the first night of the draft?
Oh, man, it was super exciting. I mean, I haven't been this excited to watch the NFL draft in years. So, for me, I think, the 49ers have been the clear winners so far. I think Trey Lance, the more I watched his tape and his YouTube videos, the more, I thought that he was going to be the perfect fit for Shanahan's system. I think he's definitely a Mahomes-like player, but he can run over safeties and linebackers, being 6'4", 240 pounds. So obviously I'm not happy because he's in my division, so I'll probably have to worry about him. But I don't have to worry about him for the next 2 or 3 years. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But I'm excited to see. I think he's really going to be a sight to see within the next 10 years in the NFL. Losers, I was kind of scratching my head with Cincinnati choosing going with Jamar Chase. I totally understand why, because they kind of want to link him up with Burrow, they were college teammates. But they really need offensive linemen. I mean, Cincinnati is just a mess right now, and them losing A.J. Green and a couple other wide receivers, they're just very short-handed on the offensive line. And Burrow led the league in sacks before his injury, before tearing his ACL last year. So that was a huge head-scratcher. Also, the Jets. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just not a believer in Zach Wilson. I saw him play a few times, and I saw him just play horribly against an actual good team. So with him just going from a small school, getting thrown into a New York team and just having that constant pressure every single day, playing with a horrible organization and just getting thrown into the wolves right away. I really think it's just going to be a nightmare for him from the get-go. But other than that, I agreed with a lot of the picks chosen. Chicago Bears getting Justin Fields, I think that was a pretty solid choice. He's going to be a great player as well. So yeah, I would say so far 49ers are in the lead.
49ers, okay, got it. Brian, I saw you shaking or nodding your head in agreement there when Mike was talking about Jamar Chase and the Bengals. So I want to ask you, man, was this probably one of the more surprising moves? What were your take on that pick?
Yeah, well, not so much surprising because you would expect. I get their decision making when they decided to pick Jamar Chase, knowing that they got that connect with Burrow. But again, like what Mike said, they are in dire need of a semblance of an offensive line. They could have gone with Sewell. They could have gone with that offensive tackle that would have been their franchise tackle. That would have been the building blocks to a good offensive line. But really, a little bit of a head scratcher. Some of the winners that I think from the first round. Let's get this out the way. Trevor Lawrence on the Jags. There's no way of screwing that up. The Jags, finally getting their franchise quarterback. He's as ready an NFL quarterback as any to finally lead a team to some wins. Another winner from the NFL draft's first round, I think, goes to Atlanta. Matt Ryan finally has he has another reason to stay with the Falcons. It looks like the franchise is still looking to compete when they picked Kyle Pitts at number 4.
Dude, sorry to cut you off, Brian. If Julio Jones stays, oh man, they're going to be
they're going to be right. They're going to be
scary.
A force. They're going to be a wrecking ball. Because Matt Ryan, he's still got some good years left in him. He's still a solid. He's not exactly elite, but he's still a solid quarterback. And then you have those wideout options and Ridley and Julio Jones, and then you throw Kyle Pitts into the mix. Man, you got a second coming of the Kansas City Chiefs, like 2.0. Not nearly as potent because Mahomes is Mahomes, but the Falcons have something cooking there. In terms of the losers, I would have to say the Raiders. the Raiders continue to make some questionable moves. I just don't get what they're doing. Like, everyone's just scratching their heads. I mean, they could have gone for, I don't know, like a wideout. They could have gone for some kind of defensive end. Dallas went away by getting Parsons. They could have chose him, but they ended up going with an NFL tackle. They ended up going with Leatherwood, which is kind of questionable, especially in the first round. So really, I think they're one of the definite losers in the NFL draft. Some other losers, not nearly as bad as the Raiders. And I hate to say that since I'm from Las Vegas. Carolina, they could have gone with a better cornerback. They really could have gone for Horn instead of picking Surtain the second. But I mean, I kind of get it. Horn has a higher ceiling, definitely, in terms of defense. But I mean, it's all good. They get a good cornerstone DB in Surtain. But yeah, that's my take on that. On the first round.
Great stuff. Sorry about your Raiders, bro, but I'm pretty happy with the picks that my Washington football team made. I think they made their defense a lot more elite with that draft of the linebacker. What was his name?
Micah Parsons.
No. Jamin, is it Jamin? Jamin was the linebacker that the Wizards.
Oh, Benjamin St.
The Wizards.
Wizards on my mind all day, every day.
Oh, definitely. I'm a basketball guy, but Ken, I'm gonna go to you, man. So, what were your thoughts on last night's NFL draft, man? Any surprising moves?
I mean, the fact that the Bears now have a franchise quarterback is, the first pretty much in all of our lifetimes is a huge deal. Right, they gave up a lot, to move up 9 to 11th pick to pick up Justin Fields, who, in my opinion, is the number two quarterback in the entire draft, behind Lawrence. But I feel like, the Mitchell Trubisky experiment is done, and then before that was Jay Cutler. I mean, it's just a very sad. I mean, like the Bears pretty much have a playoff ready team to make a very deep run, and all they need is a quarterback to man the line, and this is the guy. And I am so happy for all these Chicago fans, who've had to go through decades and decades of bad quarterbacks. This is your quarterback, and I'm very happy for that city, because they deserve a good a good football team and someone to root for. And one of the interesting storylines is the reunion of these college quarterbacks with their college wideouts, right? I mean, I think it happened 3 times yesterday, just in the first round, right? Who was that? Dolphins, Waddle reuniting with Tua, Jamar Chase reuniting with Joe Burrow, and Eagles Devontae Smith, reuniting with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he also had Trevor Lawrence with his running back too.
Right. And so I feel like as far as what these GMs are thinking, and I think they're on the right track for these thoughts, is that we want to pair these guys up with guys that they're very comfortable throwing to and receiving from. And so I feel like it's a great strategy, and the best way. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that the reason why I feel, and I think this for most people, why this draft was so exciting is because usually in a draft there's only 1 or 2 big time franchise changing quarterbacks. In this case, I think there's at least 4. I mean, if you count Mac Jones, who has no weapons with the Patriots, that'll be 5, but I don't think that's gonna be anytime soon. One of the biggest changes in the modern NFL is that quarterbacks have to be ready from day one, right? Versus the stash, learn, hold the clipboard, and then after 3 to 4 years, the Aaron Rodgers route, right? Behind Brett Favre, that was kind of like the traditional way to groom a quarterback. Now it's, for better or worse, sink or swim, you're holding the whole future of our franchise in your hands the first day of the season, and that's a very tough ask for these young guys. Can you imagine that though? Like, you're 21, 22 years old, and you have to hold an entire franchise, not just the team, but the entire city and all of its fans in your hands. I feel like that's a big ask. You know, it's one thing if you're a basketball player, because like you can pass the ball, but when you're a QB, you're the only one passing the ball, you know? And so it's extremely tough, but I feel like, you know, like the way that they're grooming these QBs in college, I feel like it's good, but at the same time too, like everyone has to be patient. Even, you know, Chicago has to be patient. Let's say, you know, Fields has a bad year. You can't just give up on him. You know, you have to be able to be like, all right, well, that's year one, and then let's continue to build around this team. And that's where I think that it requires, if you're going to put them out there from day one, everyone has to agree that we're going to be patient with our quarterback, because it's just unreasonable to think that these guys should change your entire franchise from day one.
Yeah,
year
exactly.
one.
I mean, yeah, new guys in new franchises. But now let's get into some drama in the National Football League with one of the guys who's upset with his franchise. Adam Schefter of ESPN reported that last year's MVP, Aaron Rodgers, is, quote, so disgruntled with the Green Bay Packers and does not want to return to the team, end quote. The Packers front office are said to be aware of Rodgers' sentiments, flew out the GM and the head coach to meet with Rodgers, and it's been reported that Rodgers has not budged. Yet the Packers have also been headstrong in saying they're going to keep their star quarterback. So I want to get you guys' take here. What do you guys think will happen? Mike, I want to start with you. Should Rodgers force the Packers' hand to get traded?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those classic diva versus diva sort of deal. You know, you have Aaron Rodgers, who's, you know, he's accomplished a lot. I mean, he's
Mike,
yeah,
you would know this with your team too, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's experience with your home team.
Similar. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you have Rodgers, who's 1-5 in the last NFC championships, and you have the Packers, who are just too scared to go on with Jordan Love. If I were Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I think he's doing the right thing. I mean, I feel that if he has some better weapons around him, he'll be a lot more successful. You know, obviously the Packers are not really doing anything to help. All they have is Devontae Adams that he can throw to like 20 times a game, literally. I you know, based on my research, I heard that, you know, Denver, the 49ers and also I believe the Saints are in the Raiders are in the picture.
I think it was
now.
the Raiders. The Raiders,
trying to work some things out. Obviously, one of those teams, he's definitely gonna change life. But I mean, at the end of the day, if he stays in the NFC, it won't matter. I mean, Brady's there, so he better hope.
Yeah, Brian, I saw you smiling when they mentioned the Raiders, man. So where do you, you know, there are actually reports that he's now considering retirement, Aaron Rodgers. That was just blasted today, that he's really considering retirement. But if he doesn't and he goes to another team, Brian, you were smiling. Is it with your Raiders? Give him your pitch, your sales pitch, man.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's a dream. But, I mean, if he retires, honestly, I can see him being a Jeopardy host, going back to that. But to be honest, I mean, I don't really see him going to Las Vegas. I really doubt it. I mean, that doesn't seem like a destination he wants to go to. All I've been hearing is Denver. Like he wants to go to the Broncos, possibly. But I mean, like what Mike said, I don't blame him. Like over the past decade, like Green Bay like gave him nothing over the past like 10 years of being in the draft. Like I don't think they picked an offensive option for him to throw to in the draft. For like his entire career, which is why all he's had was Devontae Adams, which is why, for some reason, oddly enough, the only offensive option or offensive player that they picked from the draft was another QB in Jordan Love, which is what
they could have got DK Metcalf, they could have got CeeDee Lamb, they could have got so many great wide receivers.
They could have got Jerry Judy. They could have got, honestly. But, I mean, I really don't blame him. I'd like to see him on a different team, see some things get shaken up in the NFC. Yeah. It would be crazy for him to go to the Broncos. That would be the craziest NFC West ever. I mean, I can't wait to see what comes next because I feel like some moves are about to happen.
It's another game of wait and see here. So going to be interesting how all this unfolds. But we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk some boxing. And of course, our question of the week. EBC Sports International will be right back.
Kickoff.
This much is certain. Something is coming. The fact check for the kickoff of the Bundesliga. Who are the favorites? Who should be nervous? And where might surprises be lurking? We dare to look ahead to the new season.
Kickoff.
There is a need for local and national governments to help entrepreneurs and SMEs unleash their potential to make the region sustainable, especially during the COVID crisis. Today, from the regional level, we will hear some of the new and unique ways in assisting the MSMEs and producers in marketing their products and even in improving their competitiveness to suit the new normal to prepare them to the resurgence of their businesses after COVID-19. As the usual way of doing things is no longer applicable, we will find different approaches to smoothly facilitate how we do business.
As we all know, agriculture has been the only sector that has registered positive growth. We are lucky in the region because we are basically an agricultural region. We have been able to register 94% employment rate. So that's a big accomplishment.
The regional director of DTI, Ms. Leia Pulido Ocampo, will join us in this week's episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back, everyone. We're down to our last topic of the night. It's official. A social media influencer will be sharing the ring with a 5-time world champion boxer. Floyd Money Mayweather, 50-0, will be fighting Logan Paul, 0-1. Now, guys, this isn't the Paul brother who defeated Nate Robinson and just recently Ben Askren. Logan is the older brother of Jake, but he's the one who lands this fight with Mayweather on June 6th at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Now, I gotta ask, Ken, I'm gonna start with you. Is this fight good or bad for the sport of boxing?
Come on, man. I think that's a rhetorical question. I mean, well, Mayweather's record, right, which is a very respectable record, even though he handpicks his boxers, like what he does, what he's doing right now. And then Logan Paul's record, a nice, respectable 0-1. It's absolutely disgusting that this fight is even happening. I mean, I've actually, like the first time I saw Logan Paul he was this funny dude in Vine. That's for all you young cats out there. That's an extinct social media. 7 seconds or less, right? I mean, that's where he...
Before TikTok.
Yeah, well, before TikTok, before, even before he got big on YouTube. And so, these Paul brothers are really milking their fame. And I get it. I mean, you got to chase the bag, right, at the end of the day. I'm not mad at Logan Paul for taking this deal because at the end of the day, you got to reach. He's a clout chaser, right? And this is like win, lose, or draw. This guy is only getting more and more fame from doing these kinds of things, especially with fighting against one of the best to ever lace him up. Even though I personally, wouldn't put him on the top list just because of how he's handpicked his fighters, as I mentioned. But for the actual sport of boxing, I mean, it's become more and more popular for these meme fights to happen, and it's a very unfortunate truth. But the silver lining is that it's getting more exposure, right? You're getting exposure from these people that watch TikToks, which will increase the overall buys, because let's face it, boxing in these last few years has been overshadowed by the UFC, MMA, and events like this help bring exposure to quote unquote dying sport, which I really don't like. I mean, like, all of us here are Manny Pacquiao fans, right? I mean, like, we love that our fellow countryman has done so much for the sport, and it just sucks to see where what's happened with this, and this is travesty. I'm gonna watch this for free somehow. I will pay for this body.
Allegedly.
I will be watching, but not paying.
Right, the highlights. But I mean, if I'm a boxer, right? If I'm a boxer who's been wanting to fight Mayweather and got denied because, like Ken said, he handpicks his fighter, and then this YouTuber comes in along 0-1, and he goes, "Yes, let's fight." I mean, I'm mad. So as a boxer, for the professional boxers, yes, I'm mad. But for the viewers, Ken makes a good point. I think a lot of people will still tune in for this fight. So, Mike, I want to ask you, man, how long does this fight last, man? How long will this fight last?
I have no idea, because I'm not going to watch the fight. I'm not even going to remotely be close to my TV during that fight. I mean, this is an absolute joke. And for these guys to have the powerful platforms that they have and do something like this instead of, doing things for the community or doing something else that will actually inspire people instead of making a farce of an event. It's shameful to me. But I mean, to answer your question, EJ, I mean, obviously Mayweather's gonna kill this guy.
Win.
I mean,
yeah.
That's the answer to EJ's question. He asked how long this fight is gonna be. Ask Mayweather, because that's literally the answer. Because it depends how.
I mean, Logan Paul's gonna know real fast what it's like to fight a professional boxer. Right. I mean, he fights guys in the backyard or whatever. He continues as great as he can, but he's gonna find out real quick what it's like to fight a professional boxer.
Levels.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, so let's say hypothetically, Logan Paul does defeat Mayweather. Do you think that this tarnishes his undefeated record, hypothetically?
Man, I really don't know what to say. Like, if that were to actually happen, like, I don't know, like, what kind of natural disaster would happen after that? Would the world implode? Would like the entire universe end? I don't know. But that would definitely, I mean, if it did actually happen, then it would be like a blonde just piece of gum that's just like stuck on like Mayweather's legacy, on his title, on his future, on his career. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because I really don't want that to be a possibility.
Well, I'm telling you now, if for some reason Logan Paul finds a way to win, strip every card from Floyd Money Mayweather, man. All the titles, all his boxing career, strip it all. It means nothing if he loses to Logan Paul. And now that's why this is what I want to happen. Because I'm Team Manny, baby. Team Manny. So, guys, great stuff. But before we end the show, we can't end without a question of the week. And we were talking about earlier about Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul. These are some of the greatest players who's ever played the sport. Now, there are many greats in the world of sports who couldn't reach the mountaintop. I want to ask each of you, who's your favorite athlete or player who never won a championship? Ken, I'm going to start with you.
Oh man, it has to be Allen Iverson, my man. Middle school Ken Cruz was wearing the Answers, and that was our team shoe. I watched almost every single game, and it was very unfortunate what he did with a step over Tyronn Lue. It stole a win from the Lakers that 2000-2001 season, which was almost a perfect season. It was just very unfortunate. I mean, and let's say, aside from all the culture changes, the positive culture changes that he did for the NBA and all of its fans, he was just a winner, and he dragged that really, really bad Eric Snow, who was their second option team in his team, like a really, really bad 76ers team to the finals. I mean, can you imagine if he had Carmelo earlier in his career? Or even Chris Webber, earlier in his career, versus the old Chris Webber. I mean, that would have been an amazing pairing, and I feel like he would have been. He is the guy for me that deserved the chip but never got it.
Great pick, man. Allen Iverson. How about you, Brian? How about you?
I would have to say T-Mac, Tracy McGrady.
T-Mac.
He was so close. Choice. He was so close to winning that ring with the Spurs once upon a time. Trying to get that easy ring towards the tail end of his career, but close, but no cigar for him. He really had it. He had it all. There was a moment where he was compared to Kobe. There was a moment in time where people were saying that he had a higher ceiling than Kobe. That dude, he was averaging like crazy numbers, but he just couldn't make it past. I don't even think like the first round by himself. He had a bit of a chance, with the Rockets, with Yao Ming, but unfortunately, injuries happen and it hampered like everything. So I mean,
solid pick. I like T-Mac. How about you, Mike?
I'm going to go with Steve Nash, two-time MVP. If they didn't have that fight against the Spurs that one year, he might have had a chance to make it to the NBA Finals. But I just loved how he played in the 7 seconds or less offense. It's totally revolutionary.
No. He won a ring with Golden State as a coach, and now he's a head coach. He might win a ring this year. If you were to ask me, my favorite Wizards player, because the Wizards have never won a championship while I was alive, it'd have to be Gilbert Arenas. Gilbert Arenas is definitely my favorite athlete who never won a championship. Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's edition of EBC Sports International. On behalf of everyone on our panel, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in again next week, and make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at EagleNewsPH to join the conversation. For EBC Sports International, I'm EJ Gonzalez, where we live in interesting times.
Well, that's old. That's old, bro. Let me bust out my 2013